Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you everybody for joining us today in this FileCloud webinar. Today we're going to be talking about FileCloud's best security practices. Our topics that we're going to be discussing today, going a little bit deep into our encryption in transit and at rest, multiple factor authentication, DOP and CCE, which stands for data leak prevention and content classification engine, antivirus integration, workflows, device management, and system-wide restrictions. Let's start off talking a little bit about encryption in transit and how does FileCloud do it. For encryption in transit, we use AES 256-byte encryption via SSL certificates, and we do support TLS 1.3. For FileCloud Online, this is already included. For FileCloud On-premise, well, this depends if you are going to be providing your own SSL certificates into FileCloud so that all communication goes through port 443 and all your communication is encrypted in transit. Now, when your communication is encrypted in transit, this means that you avoid attacks like a man-in-the-middle attack, where somebody can grab your information while it's being moved from a desktop client to a server, for example. Having encryption in transit gives you that sort of security that you're going to be protected from endpoint to endpoint. Encryption at rest, this is when your files are encrypted on storage. We use AES 256-bit encryption. It's one of the strictest encryption standards in the world. We have multiple capabilities such as Amazon's S3 managed key encryption, Amazon KMS managed key encryption, and customer supplied key encryption. While the three might sound the same, they have their own differences and their performance varies depending on the file size. We will be sending you a document after this webinar that contains all the encryption capabilities and how they differ each one from another. That way you have a little bit more information. Now, this is available as well online and on-premise installation of FileCloud. From within our encryption at rest, we also support FIPS 140-2. FileCloud meets all the necessary security requirements for cryptographic modules, which are formalized by the Federal Information Processing Standard, or FIPS, in their publication 140-2, which is validated by the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST 800-1701, and the Canadian Communication Security Establishment, CSE. As you can see, once you enable FIPS 140-2 encryption in FileCloud, you're going to see a banner on top showing you that FIPS mode is enabled. So between AES 256 and FIPS 140-2 encryption, it's really just a cryptographic model that changes. When we're looking at FIPS, it's usually when you're looking for CMC level 3 data hygiene encryption, or you're looking for GovCloud, or you're looking for a very specific compliance need. Usually FIPS is a common encryption that's brought up. FileCloud has been validated, and we do have the cryptographic model, so we support such kind of encryption. Now, within the security capability, FileCloud supports multiple factor authentication. Two-factor authentication refers to the two-step verification process, right? That is designed to provide an extra layer of security. With this function, in order to access FileCloud servers or the FileCloud web user portal, or actually the desktop client, the user requires to know not only the password and the username, but also an extra security code that is made available for them. This way, the user can actually validate he is who he says he is. We support email, TOTP, which is just Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, or any authenticator app that scans a barcode, for example. We do support SMS via Twilio, dual security, and SSO. Why is SSO added here, right, for the two-factor authentication? Simply because of the fact that we can integrate with your SSO provider. This could be Okta, this could be Azure SSO. And within your SSO provider, you might already have some policies to enable 2FA. So you could actually integrate your SSO solution into the FileCloud so that we offload the authentication responsibility to the SSO provider. And then if your SSO requires a second factor authentication, FileCloud will also wait for it. Once the user is validated, they will be able to log in. Here's a couple of screenshots of how does it look on the web user portal and how does it look on the desktop clients. When you enable two-factor authentication, this applies everywhere on the system. Now, let's go a little bit about FileCloud's content classification engine. FileCloud's content classification engine is a rule-driven content classification system that enables the generic labeling of files with metadata. This labeling enables key operations within the FileCloud, such as contextual file search and data leak prevention. So what does that even mean? In more simple words, our content classification will look for patterns within the documents when you upload them. When you're uploading a document to FileCloud, FileCloud can index the content of the document. So if I have a file that says hello world, the content that's inside the document is hello world. I can search for the words hello world and not necessarily for the subject or title of the document itself, and the document will come up. Having this capability, we add FileCloud's content classification search and tell it, okay, based on the regex, which is commonly known as a regular expression, we're telling FileCloud to look for patterns. For example, on the screenshot that you see, I'm telling it, hey, if you see any document that has a pattern with 0 to 9, 3 digits followed by hyphens, then 0 to 9, 2 digits followed by hyphens, followed by 0 to 9, 4 digits followed by hyphens, that's technically a social security number pattern. So I'm telling it, hey, if you find this pattern, I want you to add that metadata tag on that document that a social security number has been found. The way that it works is that you upload a file gets indexed. If within the index of that file, there is a pattern that's being matched, it will immediately get tagged with a metadata tag. There's a lot of actions that you can do once this happens that we're going to be discussing later on. Now, on the same line, we also have FileCloud's data leak prevention, or Smart DLP, which is FileCloud's feature that enables administrator to closely control the degree to which a user can access, edit, download, and transfer their organizational files and folders. Now, let's say that you have a user and you give him permissions to upload and download files. Perfect. But maybe you want to add a rule that says, hey, if you're not within this IP range, I don't want you to download, I only want you to upload. Using FileCloud's DLP, you can get this done. Let's say I'm going to give my user, Jack, access to download, upload, share, sync inside the folder data. Well, I have those capabilities. I can add another rule as an administrator and create a rule that says, okay, if, let's say, Jack, which is in this user group, right, is not within this IP range, deny the download. This DLP rule will prevent me from downloading any single document from any folder that I have access to unless I'm within that IP range. Now, this works with the least privileges model, meaning that the rule that denies more privileges than the ones stated before is the ones that are going to be applied. Another way of thinking about it is which condition comes out on top? Well, the condition that's more restrictive. That's the one that FileCloud will follow. It does not matter if you give them permission to share or whatever. If the DLP rule says it's denied, it's not going to go through. Now, going back to our previous example with the metadata tag that I was discussing here, I'm doing it the same here. I'm telling it, hey, if you find the file with the metadata tag, social security number found, deny the download. So that's how all those together work. Now let's see how they work actually together. Here's a complete workflow how this works. FileCloud TCE and Smart DLP are usually meant to work together in conjunction. So this is our advanced security technology that allows us to be more interactive towards response and automating certain capabilities. If we evaluate this workflow carefully, let me tell you exactly what's going on here. I upload a file, right? The file actually goes into Smart classification based on Solar's index. Based on Solar's index, the Smart classification will add a metadata tag. And then based on that metadata tag, we can apply a DLP rule to block it. Now, if you noticed here, I uploaded an important document. Within that important document, I added a social security number. Immediately once I upload and try to click on download, the metadata tag has been added, and then DLP kicks in. This document contains social security number, hence the download is denied. We're going to be doing a live, I'm going to show you live how this works, but this is the overall and how this works together. So just so we have a complete train of thoughts here, the user uploads the file gets indexed based on the content classification. If the index file contains any pattern that matches the rules in which we're trying to classify the document, the metadata will get added. And then based on that metadata, if you have a DLP that's restricting certain actions like download, login, or sharing, then the DLP rule will apply. By the way, if any of you have any questions around this demo, please feel free to add them on the chat. I will take a look at them once we're done. But this is to clarify a little bit more. Now, moving forward, we have the antivirus integration. FileCloud supports two types of antivirus integration. ClimAV, which is free software, cross-platform, and open source antivirus software toolkit, able to detect many types of malicious softwares, including viruses. We have been using CloudMAV successfully towards detecting multiple viruses such as Trojan horses, spyware, and others. Or if you prefer, you can integrate your own antivirus with ICAP or the Internet Content Adaptation Protocol. It's a generic protocol that allows the web server to offload specific tasks. This delegation is helpful when the task requires custom built-in on servers. So very common, McAfee, for example, Norton, and other enterprise-level antivirus support ICAP technology, which we're integrating to the antivirus server using ICAP communication, so that every file that's uploaded to FileCloud gets scanned. Aside this fact, we also have McAfee CASB Vision and ICAP DLP that you can integrate with FileCloud. On this note, it is very important to mention that we're protecting and we're scanning the files that are being uploaded into FileCloud. But this does not mean that this will protect the server where FileCloud is hosted. If it's on premise, it is your responsibility to protect that server where FileCloud is being hosted. That means adding in the antivirus, adding the protection. The antivirus integration that's being done on FileCloud does not affect the server where the FileCloud is being hosted. Now, FileCloud workflows. The FileCloud workflows is, as its name stated, it's a workflow meant to automate certain tasks. It is important to mention that within the security context because you're able as an administrator to do very automated tasks that will allow you to not worry about what your user is doing because your system is taking care of them. Let me give you a couple of examples that are created for you. For example, if a device tries to log in, like an iPhone, an Android, or whichever iPad, tries to log in without you authorizing that device, you can block that device immediately so that it requests your administrator approval. Until you have approved that device to be able to log into the FileCloud, that user will not be able to log in. We also have a heuristic engine within FileCloud where it will detect if the file's content is the same, which it actually has based on the extension. If not, FileCloud will verify the integrity and deny the file being uploaded or delete the file on the spot when it tries to upload it. Let me give you a quick idea so we can relate to this specifically. Let's say somebody creates a payload using NFVenom, right, which is a very common payload to obtain system access via terminal. When that payload is created, you can change that payload to be a picture, like let's say jack.jpg. But in reality, when you open it up, it will unzip a file that executes an auto run that starts a script to gain access to your system. That's a pretty common attack. FileCloud is able to detect that that file is really not a JPEG, but actually a zip. Since the file extension and actually the content of the file does not match, it denies the upload of the document and can actually delete it even before it reaches your server, therefore preventing any future inconveniences. Another great security capability is FileCloud having the capability of evaluating, okay, which users have not been active or have not been using the system and disable them. This way you know who has access to your system and who hasn't. There are many workflows that you can create to automate your system as well as maintenance, hence the reason of bringing it up. We also have a lot of documentation that's going to be sent after this demo on how to create them. We call them workflow recipes. We work with if, then that function to give you a little bit more information on it. Now, FileCloud's device management. Administrators can manage devices from the admin portal after remote managing is enabled. For example, in FileCloud Sync, you can use device management for feature to configure device settings like client configurations and apply them all at once to users or groups. So what can you do from here? As you can see there, I have my user Doug. Doug is logged in with the Sync client. From here, I can request the logs, predefine configurations. For example, hey, I don't want you downloading this folder. I only want you to download this folder. I want you to only sync from this hour to this hour. I can block the device and remote wipe it. Let me correct that right there, not the device itself, but the FileCloud itself. We can wipe the data regarding FileCloud, not the whole device, and we can even send a message to the client. There's a great way to automate or block access depending on the user. Now, as a system-wide restrictions, there are many more, like user policies and forward password settings, limiting the share capabilities. Maybe you do not want them sharing publicly, you only want them sharing privately. We can disable sync capabilities, grant no folder permissions, This allows files to be uploaded based on their extension, restricting access based on their IP range, and others. Now, I'm going to shift gears a little bit here, and I'm going to actually show you how does this function completely. That way we have a full idea on how the FileCloud actually functions. I'm going to go ahead and change my screen, and I'm going to go to my user portal. This is the end user portal. I've created a couple of rules to show you how this functions correctly. I'm going to create a new folder here. Call this folder right? Maybe a user once you have a personal folder inside the FileCloud, and maybe they want to store their PII data, such as a social security number, or maybe they want to store other information which is more relevant to them, In this scenario, I'm going to go ahead and edit this document. I'm going to add a social security number, just a random one. 256 59 4586 89, right? I'm going to save this information. Now, once this is saved, I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop it into the FileCloud. Once this document gets uploaded, a couple of things are happening based on our discussion, right? The file is getting indexed by our Solr and content search. Then based on metadata tags, this document will be automatically tagged, as you see here. Has been automatically tagged. By going to the metadata tag, we can see that it detected that a social security number has been identified. Now, if I try to download this document, I can't. This document contains social security number, hence cannot be downloaded. If I want to view this document, I can't. This document contains social security number, hence the download is denied. Having that capability will really aid you to comply with CMC, FedRAMP, even HIPAA, when we're talking about private personal information. Now, how does this all work? If we go back into the admin portal, let's take a look at the smart classification rules I've created. I created a couple to detect credit cards, such as Visa, American Express, MasterCard, social security number, if a document has the word confidential, or if it's a US phone number. Just to give you an idea. Let's review the one for the social security number. Pretty much I'm telling it, hey, if you find this pattern, which is a regex, I want you to add the metadata tag, social security number, identified. And then I create a DLP rule that says, hey, if you find any number, any metadata that has this pattern, deny its download. FileCloud will also allow you to see the capability of seeing who is actually trying to do this action in the system and what they try to do. So I have a full idea. On this note, FileCloud also gives you a great capability of building a report on it. So if I wanted to see, hey, I want to see all the files that have a social security number in your system. Maybe you get audited, you want to clean your system to prevent any inconveniences, sure, you can do it. In here, for example, you can see all the documents that have a social security number have been tagged. For example, this one. This is my login. This is my folder. This is the file that has it, the one that we just created. And that's how CCE and DLP work together. It really helps you just get that control over your system. A couple of things I wanted to review with you were the workflows as well, right? As I showed you on the previous slides. When we talk about a workflow, I'm just telling it, hey, and we have multiple of them. For example, if a user's last login is older than, and then it gives you an example here. Let's say I'm going to go with 15 days. And the user account is a limited user, which are the free accounts that FileCloud offers for external account sharing. I want you to disable the user account. Why so? If it's an external user and it's only temporarily, you're only sharing with them for a minute or two, you really do not want them to have permanent access to your system. That can be considered a security flaw. So this workflow will say, hey, you know what? For 15 days, if this user has not used it, disable his account. That way he does not have access to your system. That just improves your security of your overall FileCloud as well. There are multiple workflows that you can look at. As I said before, we're going to give you documentation on this so you can really, really get to know them, but they can really help you automate your system. On that note, let's go ahead and look into some of the settings that I wanted to show you. From within the settings on storage, you're going to have the capability of enabling encryption by clicking on manage, and then you can enable the encryption. In my scenario, I have enabled FIPS 140-2. You're going to see that banner on top once you enable it. If not, this banner does not come up. On that same note, you can enable authentication throughout the directory, LDAP, and others. or SSO, as I was mentioning, mostly for your 2FA, if that's something you want to do. When it comes to 2FA, it's fairly easy to set it up. Just create a policy, go to 2FA, click on yes, and you can easily enable it. That way the users will be requested to use 2FA when they try to log in. And as a system-wide restriction, you can really lock FileCloud down. For example, you can only allow specific extensions, like, hey, I only want Office extensions, PDFs, and related. By only allowing the specific extensions, you're actually blocking every other extension. Or you can do the other way around. You can disallow specific extension, and it will allow everything else except those specific extensions. From a user standpoint, from their password, you can set enforced password policies, minimum password, enable strong password, disallow commonly used passwords, and many others just to make sure that your system is locked down tight. Now, this does not apply if you're integrating with your Active Directory and you're only using domain users. FileCloud will respect whatever the domain or your SSO solution is providing it, right? As if we're only reading from the domain controller. And then on that note, you can deny sharing as public share, only have it privately. That way nobody can do any public share, And as part of the things that we have reviewed today, the antivirus integration, which you can enable it here under third parties, antivirus. You can select ClamAV or ICAP. If you want to validate if your antivirus supports ICAP, for example, that's a quick Google search that you can do. For example, McAfee ICAP, and then get all the information from your third-party providers, your party antivirus. On this note, last but not least, we have devices. As you're seeing here, I have capability of looking at all the data that they're doing. How many gigs are they actually downloading, or how much is available in their disk space? What folders I selected to download. But maybe this user's device got stolen. I can simply block the device and remote wipe the data. But this data is only related to the FileCloud data, not the whole computer. Now, it was not part of this presentation, but it's important to mention the FileCloud does keep a GeoIP, where you're going to be able to see from what part of the world people are logging in. As well, a detailed auditing log that was going to show you exactly what has everybody done in the system. Who deleted, who created, who accessed, from where, what, and when. These are all details that will help you meet certain compliances within FileCloud. Now at this point, let's go back into the presentation. And I'm going to open up for about 5 minutes. Please, if you have any questions, now would be a great time. I'm not sure if you can see the QA option window to ask any questions that you would like for me to answer for you. And yeah, I'll be waiting for your questions. All right, at this point, I see no questions coming in. I want to personally thank you for making time for this webinar. I hope it has been actually, that we got some questions. Yes, that's a great question. We definitely can set file limits on versioning. Let me show you exactly how that works. That's a great question, by the way. When we're setting this up, it goes from the admin portal. You can go into storage, and right here you can set how many number of folders you want to keep, of all the files you want to keep. That's how you can set the number of previous versions to keep on FileCloud. Anytime. So at this point, I think we got all the questions that were being sent in. Please do remember, we do value you a lot. If you have any questions or need assistance with your setup, please reach out to us. We're here to help you. You can reach out to our sales team if you're working with any account executive and a solution engineer. my advice is to contact your account executive or contact our sales team directly at sales@qualys.com. If you need help with support, just contact support@qualys.com. We will try to do the best for you, jump into a session, help you in any way we can. And if you would like to visit our documentation, feel free to do so. It's www.getfilecloud.com/support docs. Our documentation is available to whomever needs it. If you're on a trial or a paid customer, we're still going to give you the same assistance, especially if you're on the trial. Don't worry about it. You get full support from our end. I want to thank everyone once again for making time for this meeting. And thank you for choosing FileCloud. You all have a great weekend and stay safe.